Welcome to Mind Your Mental Health channel. This is our 6th episode. This episode we are going to talk about emotions, which is another important aspect of the mind. It is salt and pepper of life. Without emotions, life will be bland, probably unlivable. So let's see what is emotion and why do we need it and what it does. Okay. In the last episode, I've drawn a parallel between computer and the mind. If you recall, I talked about different component of the computer. Input device, which is our keyboard and mouse and the microphone, through which we input the data or information into the computer. And it also consists of CPU, central processing unit, which processes the data, whatever we give in or whatever we send into the computer. Then we have output devices in a computer. Our computer monitor and the speakers are the output device through which we see what is happening in the computer. What we want from the computer is given through the monitor and the speaker and printer. If you have a printer, you print it out. These are all different aspects of the computer. I've drawn a parallel with the mind, where mind has an input device. Our 5 senses are input device. We see, we touch, we taste, we hear. All these senses, sensory modalities or sensory parts of the body takes in the information which goes into the brain and gets analyzed and stored. And when I talked about thought, I said how the thought retrieves the information what we have stored it, which we obtained by perception, faculty called perception, and then we analyze those bits of information and our thought process begins and ends. So that is about perception and thought. And we said that emotion is another aspect of the mind, which is also very important in functioning, day-to-day functioning of a human being, not only human being, any living being, any animal kingdom. So what is emotion? Emotions are mind's reaction to an incident, to the environment, to happenings, to a thought. These are all reactions. Now, there is something happening which is very horrific. Then I react with an emotion. I react with certain emotion, probably the fear or panic, whatever it is. This is emotion. It has a different component. One is the information what we get, the thought or information what we get. Suppose I see a very poisonous snake, cobra here. Then that information goes into the brain and then that triggers a thought process. It happens in a fraction of a second. Then I perceive that as a danger. Then that leads on to emotion, a fear, a panic. And that fear triggers certain physiological changes in the body. And that physiological changes are perceived by the mind and the body, and the whole emotion is perceived. So it has a component of thinking or thought or information, and that information triggers certain physiological changes, and that is perceived as a fear. And then based on that fear, we act. We express and we act. When we talk about emotion, we need to talk about 2 other words. These are all very common words. We use it in our day-to-day life. Emotion is one. The second one is feeling. Third one is mood. We need to know the difference between these 3. Emotions are, as I said, it's reactionary. It's a reaction to a information what we received, our experience what we have. This reaction produces certain changes in the body and in the mind, and that is perceived. So it is a momentary, it's a short-lived. Emotions are short-lived. And you might ask me, what is feeling then? What is emotion? What is feeling? Both are same, isn't it? There's a subtle difference there. When I have that emotion, let's say fear as an emotion, when I perceive it, When I realize that I have a fear and all the accompanying physiological changes, we'll come to that a little later, physiological changes, and it lasts for some time, then it is feeling. Feeling is experience. Feeling is what subjective phenomena, where I feel the fear, I feel the happiness, I feel the disgust. So that is the feeling. Feeling lasts little more. So it is called feeling. So emotions and feeling. What is mood? Mood is something, a sustained feeling or sustained emotion is called mood. It lasts over a period of time. It is not momentary, it is not only reactionary, it starts and continues for some more time. It may not be very specific. It may not be that I see a snake here and I get a fear, that is emotion. That fear lasts longer till the snake is removed or move away. That is a feeling. I'm feeling that there's a threat. I might die. That snake might bite me. And when the snake is gone, everything is fine. Still, I might have continuing anxiety or fear. It might last for longer. It might last for a day or two. That is mood. Mood is sustained emotion. It may not be a specific. It is kind of a generalized. So mood. So we need to know emotion, feeling and mood. Because we need to know this because we have a set of psychological disorders called mood disorders. We will discuss that in detail when we come to the individual disorders. So we know what is emotion now, feeling and mood. Okay, what are moods? I mean, is there a types of mood? All of us know there are different types of mood. A number of researchers now, starting from philosopher to psychologists, sociologists and psychiatrists, try to analyze the emotions. Initially, the theory was there were 4 basic emotions. They are basic because they are fundamental emotions. And so these emotions are there in everybody. And this is something very basic and very essential. Next question is, do we need emotion? Can we do away with the emotion? Because fear is very unpleasant emotion. Sadness is very unpleasant emotion. Disgust is another unpleasant emotion. Suspicion is another emotion which is not so good. Why should go through all those things? Let's do with the emotion. Can we? No. Because emotions have certain functions. Emotions have protective functions of an organism. I'm talking about not only human being, I'm talking about whole animal kingdom. They also have emotions. So emotion serves as a protective mechanism. Emotion serves as an enabling factor. It makes people do things. Okay? So let us come back to the 4 basic emotions. What are they? Fear is one emotion, and anger is another emotion. Happiness is one emotion, sadness is one emotion. These are the 4 basic fundamental emotions. After that, number of researchers came up with 7 emotions. Then they said there are 27 emotions. There are numbers have been added, but these 4 are basic emotions. Let's take fear. Why we say basic? Because it's essential. It is not only basic, it is also essential for a human being, for a living organism, because it acts as a protective mechanism. I'll explain to that. The fear, when the person gets a fear, when there is something threatening, it could be life-threatening, it could be threatening to his self-esteem, it threatening to career, it can be anything. The threat. That threat induces certain thought process, and it recognizes the enormity of the problem, what he is going to face. That triggers certain bodily changes. Okay, let's see what are these bodily changes. When I talked about the brain and the mind, if you recall, I told you, brain is in layers. Topmost layer is cerebrum. That's where all thinking and our vision, everything is there. So that's the cerebrum. Within that cerebrum is a brain called emotional brain, or terminologically we call it as a limbic system. This limbic system is also called as emotional brain because it is one of the important aspect or part of the brain which mediates emotion. So there are a number of parts in that limbic system. Each has different functions, and some of the parts are probably triggers aggressive behavior. Like that, we have different functions in that limbic system. And that limbic system is also closely related to nervous system. One aspect of nervous system is what we call as autonomous nervous system. When I discussed about brain, I talked about voluntary, involuntary actions. I said some of the actions are not under our control, like heartbeat, respiration, movements in the bowel. All those things are not under our control. I can't control my heart rate. I can't control my bowel movements. It happens without our control. That's why it's called involuntary actions of the nervous system. This nervous system is called autonomic nervous system because it's autonomous. It acts by itself. And this emotional brain and the autonomic nervous systems are closely related. So when the brain, the cerebrum, perceives the information and realizes that as a trigger, perceives that as a threat, then it immediately activates the autonomic nervous system. That autonomic nervous system can produce certain actions in the body. For example, heart starts pumping faster. Breathing becomes more rapid. And we might have a stiffness of muscles, tensions in the muscles. And we might feel impending danger. Now, butterflies in the stomach. There's something happening, churning in the stomach. So all these things are related to autonomic nervous system. This what makes us perceive the fear. If none of this happen, we may not fully perceive the fear. So are you with me? So we have a brain. Cerebrum manages all our thought processes. Then we have a limbic system, emotional brain, that is closely related to the autonomic nervous system, involuntary nervous system, and the emotional brain triggers this nervous system. And that nervous system makes all these changes. There is a reason for doing that. Because the mind perceives the threat, it has to prepare the body for facing that threat. So why heart beats faster? Because we need to circulate the body, blood more rapidly. So we need a transport system which takes hormones, everything all over the body. Then why do we breathe rapidly? Because we need more oxygen, we breathe rapidly. Why our muscles become tense? Because we are ready to either fight or fly away from the place. Fight or flight. So the autonomic system prepares our body for the threat. So that's how we perceive the threat. Once I perceive, my body reacts, I might run away. Or aggression is turned on. One particular part of the brain triggers aggression, then I can probably go ahead and kill the snake. So that's how the emotions work. Now you understand why emotions are important. It is a protective factor. When it is happening in a normal situation, when it is in the control, when it is happening as a normal brain, mind and bodily function, it is a protective factor. In a disorder, it overshoots. It becomes out of proportion, or without a threat, I might feel the fear. Then it becomes abnormal behavior or abnormal mental mechanism. So that's why we need the emotions. You might say, okay, fear is fine. What about happiness? Okay, happiness is something which we experience, something which makes us happy. Happiness is the emotion which makes us do things, enables us to do things. Fear is the one which makes you run away or fight, protect yourself. Happiness or joy is something which makes you do things which is needed for your life process or life cycle. For example, sexual activity. Sexual activity is a joyous or happy activity which is necessary to propagate the generation. So imagine if there is sexual activities does not have any pleasure, any joy, anything, then people may not indulge in it. They might think it's additional work. Why should I do it? So nature has linked the positive emotion and a particular activity so that that activity is done. That activity is enabled. That's why we need emotion. The emotion is an essential part of our life. It can also become a problem in life when it becomes abnormal emotions. Okay, so far we discussed about emotions, feelings, mood. I talked about the structure brain, cerebrum, emotional brain, all those things. Then you might ask me, you said 4 emotions, but is there any other emotion? There are a number of emotions. There are 27 emotions. Somebody listed 27, somebody listed hundreds of emotions. The happiness, joy, cheerfulness, suspicion, anger, aggressions, all these things are emotions. Disgust, all these things are emotions. The emotions are multiple. Now, so when you look at the mind, you don't look at mind as one aspect of the mind alone, because all 3 aspects of the mind are interlinked and they are dependent on each other. If I have a thought which is very fearsome, that can trigger a thought process. I will think about it, then I react emotionally. Accordingly, I will either express myself in my facial expression or bodily language, or I'll run away due to the fear. If I am happy, respectively, my mood, everything, my expression, everything changes. When I talked about emotion, I said the thought process and bodily changes. The third one is expression of the emotion. Emotions, if I keep it to myself, nobody is going to know. Emotion is one way of communicating my mental activity. If somebody cracks a joke, I smile or I laugh it out and I say, oh, it's a great joke. Then that is a communication giving. That communication is, I have listened what you said and I enjoyed it. It's a nice joke and appreciating it. It's a communication. It is one of the output device. Emotions can be one of the output device. Remember, computer, input device, central processing unit and output device. Emotion can be one of the output device, because emotions tells the people what I'm thinking, what I'm experiencing, what's going on in me. So, among the expression, most important is facial expression. The researchers say about 70% of our emotions are conveyed through our facial expression, because we have a number of muscles in our face. Each muscle will act during the emotions. Tremulousness and tearfulness. There are many emotions which can be expressed through our face. And face is very important. And then we have a behavior. Behavior, for example, if I am fearful, I might be fidgety, I might be wringing my hands, or I might sit at the edge of the chair and then sit quietly, and then probably I'll be breathing more and I can feel the palpitation, heart beating faster. That's a behavior. That's a body language I'll have. If I am happy, that's going to transform into my body language. I'll be more relaxed, my hand movements, my body posture, everything is going to change according to my mood. So facial expression, body language are very important aspects in our system which expresses emotion. Not only that, there is a third component which is speech. Speech is another output device. Like you put in a data into the computer and you expect the computer to tell you something. Now we have artificial intelligence, we can do so many things. We can ask the computer to answer some of the questions. Then computer tells you, gives you answer by recorded message or whatever it is. Like that, that's an output. Like that, mind or our mind has output device. One of the output devices is speech, what we speak. So our emotions can also be expressed through our speech. So my face, my speech, when I say speech, tone of the speech, speed of the speech. Anxious people can talk rapidly. Anxious people can also talk loudly. Extremely happy people can talk loudly, but their facial expression will be in happiness. And extremely disgusting, you have a different kind of a facial expression, and their thought content will be different, than their speech will be different. So your speech modulates according to your emotions. We will have certain control over it, but you can't completely control. People can always perceive that you're angry, or you're sad, or you're happy. Okay. So these are all some of the aspects of the emotions. The last aspect of emotion is your behavior, how you behave. So emotion triggers our behavior. Now I said, as I given an example, there's a snake here, I run away. Running away is a behavior. I'm escaping from the threat. And I'm feeling very angry. Anger is one of the emotion. And anger triggers aggression. I behave aggressively. That is another behavior. So emotions can also trigger behavior, and emotion, perception, thought can trigger a particular emotion. That emotion can trigger a behavior. Now, when I talked about thought, I said we perceive information, use that for thinking. When we perceive the information, we can perceive the information with emotions. Suppose I see a very horrific car accident. Then when I see it, I'm going to be quite anxious about it. I might have a fear. And that fear, that information, that accident, what I saw visually is recorded in my brain with that emotion, that fear. When I think about it again, after a couple of days, still the emotions would come out. Still I have a little bit of, not the kind of fear what I had at that spot, but I might have some fear, recall of some emotions also. So the information is clubbed together most of the time with an emotion and stored. When you retrieve that information, emotions also do come with that. So that way, emotions and thought and perception are interlinked. They are all depend on each other. All together, emotion, thought and perception together produces a behavior. And this behavior is another important aspect of the mind. That is the fourth aspect of the mind. How people behave. That's a huge topic. In our next episode, we will discuss about behavior. What is it? And how people behave, why people behave, what makes them behave in such a way. All those things we will discuss in the next episode.